Yes, please use chat to say hello to people. But I'm going to kick us off as a few more folks jump in. We are at almost 20. That is wonderful. So first off, thank you everybody so much for joining this evening. We are really excited to kick off our Comm Council virtual career series. This has been a labor of love to try and figure out the best way for us to connect with all of these students in the midst of a pandemic, when we can't do our normal wonderful events like Career Day and our mixers and our celebrations for graduation. So we wanted to make sure that we stood something up that would allow us to do that in kind of a new and interesting way. I want to give a big thank you to Jeanette and Justin on the call. They really spearheaded this from the council perspective, getting all the logistics together, coming up with the format, so thank you. My name is Alex, and I chair our Comm Alumni Council. Karen supports us from the faculty side. Justin, Justine, and Jeanette, man, you really, that made me work for it, are all members of our council, and we are here to support connection between the Comm department, between students, between alumni, and forge some good relationships. Also stand-up mentoring opportunities and different ways for you to learn about careers within the communication field. So that is what the nature of this career series is. And I wanted to, before we get started, do two things. The first thing is, I don't know if anyone came to Career Day last year, but we did a virtual Slido. The reason I wanted to do this is to just get a pulse on how many people are actually on the call. So let me show this. If you could go to slido.com and then enter this number here. There's only a few questions and then we'll jump in and enter what year are you? Oh, it's not showing the other options. Don't worry, there are options for alumni, faculty, staff here as well. Got a couple votes in there. Only two. There we go. There's 20 people on the call. We should see a few more numbers up there. I won't keep us on here too long if this doesn't go. I just want to get a pulse on kind of how many folks are joining and from what year and what our audience is looking like. Okay. We didn't get everyone's responses in, but we will, a couple more coming in. I'll give it a second. Cool. So lots of seniors participating. Alums, of course. Doesn't look like we have any freshmen or sophomores, so we may need to reach out to that audience. All right. Where did you hear about this event? Very interested to know, did you learn about it at social media? Did you learn about it from the listserv? Again, trying to reach the widest audience we can. So interested to know where you heard about it from. We got some others. Does anyone want to come off mute and tell me which option I missed? What's other?
I saw it on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. I didn't put LinkedIn on here. Great. Okay, so lots from the department listserv. Fantastic. That's where I figured we would get most of our audience from. So we will definitely keep sending out these opportunities via the listserv. All right, and last one, fun one. Where are you dialing in from? IVSB area, rest of California. I'm hoping we have someone internationally, but I'm not banking on it. We do. Who's dialing in from international and where are you? You have to come off mute.
I'm currently in China.
And who's that speaking?
Vivian.
Thank you so much for dialing in from China. What time of day is it for you right now?
It's 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Wonderful. We're so glad to have you.
We have another one from China too that I recognize.
Hi, I'm from China.
Who's that speaking?
I'm Xinyu.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for dialing in all the way. We have a few outside of California. No surprise, IVSB area is the largest. So thank you very much for joining from everywhere. That is just wonderful to see. Before I turn it over to the woman of the hour, we are hosting a series of these, as you all know. These are going to be monthly on the second Wednesday of every month, and they're going to be themed based on a career that we think you all would be interested in learning a bit more about. These come from polls and surveys that we've done of students in the past. It by no means is limited to what you see on this screen. There are going to be others coming up, and we would love to hear from you after this. If there is a specific topic of interest to you, we would love to hear about it so we can schedule something of interest to you and to other students. So please tune in for the rest of these. You'll get another opportunity to RSVP via Eventbrite. But for now, I will turn it over to Justine. The format of the evening is basically going to be Justine sharing her career journey with us. Obviously, she has a very exciting job that we all are very interested to hear more about. And then we will reserve some time at the end, probably 10 minutes or so for live Q&A. If you have questions, you can chat them and I'll take note of them as we're going through. You don't have to hold them till the end. You can put them in the chat and we'll read through those. But please, we will hold them until the end and we'll answer them all at once. All right, Justine, I'll turn it over to you. Take it away.
Okay, thanks so much, Alex. And thank you so much to all of you guys for tuning in. That's great to see all your faces and to see all those people who don't have their faces up here. Still so great to have you. So yeah, basically I'll just kind of talk about what my career path was, because it was definitely not a straight line by any means, which I think a lot more people these days have experiences like that. And then, yeah, I want to hear all your questions because I'd much rather talk about things that you want to hear about than just my life. So basically, after or during school, I studied abroad in Moscow and I traveled a lot and I knew I wanted to do something international and travel and getting out in the world. And so after graduation, I moved to Thailand and taught English there and traveled for about a year. And I think that was probably the best thing I did because it gave me that opportunity to see the world and to learn about different things and to get out there. And I loved every second of that. So if any of you have the opportunity to do that, obviously it's really difficult right now with Corona, but in general, to do that at some time in your life, especially, right when you first graduate, it's a great time. I highly recommend that. So after that, I moved back to home for a couple months and then moved to New York, which is something I knew that I'd always wanted to do. I actually was between NYU and UCSB for undergrad and kept going back and forth, decided I wanted that real college experience. And that's why I stuck with Santa Barbara, but I knew I was going to move to New York at some point. I just wanted that big city kind of feel. So I moved to New York and I knew one person here who I had done an internship with years before. And I ended up sleeping on a friend of a friend's floor for a few days. And then, I don't know, just trying to make it work. And after about a couple of weeks, I got an internship and I figured I might as well start with that. And then within 2 weeks maybe of that internship, they asked me if I wanted a full-time job. So it worked out really well for me. I know it doesn't always go that smoothly, but I will say that that first internship I got was through a friend's friend's company. So it's sometimes I know those stories are crazy. It's oh, my uncle's friend, sister's brother, whatever, but it actually happens that way a lot of the time. So that was doing event planning, which is what I had done for much of my time in undergrad and my internships in undergrad. And I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I actually really enjoyed it. I still enjoy doing things like that, but I just didn't really feel fulfilled. And I felt kind of this is fun, but what am I really doing with my life? And I think it's a great career opportunity, but just for me, I wanted something a little bit different. And so I started doing a lot of random things. So I left that job and I worked in TV commercial production. So I did production assistant stuff, unpacking all the sets for a Dora the Explorer, Fisher Price, commercial, and helping with the talent and the directors for a Nickelodeon commercial. So all sorts of different things. I started writing and doing photography for a website about New York. I started helping in fashion. I thought fashion would be cool to work in. Of course, everyone's dream coming to New York, be a fashion person. I didn't even know what that meant. So I got a freelance job again, helping during Fashion Week with dressing and kind of the merchandising aspects of that. And that was amazing because it was so much fun. And I also learned that I really didn't care about fashion. So it was great. And I think that's what so many of those internships are about. I thought, oh, the TV production thing is cool, but I don't care about these commercials. Oh, the fashion thing, so much fun. I have great memories. I made great friends. definitely don't want to do that with my life. So I'm so happy that I took this time to do lots of different things, because I realized the aspects I liked and the aspects I didn't like. And again, made so many friends and memories along the way. Then I moved to Paris for the summer and did a writing program, because I thought I wanted to go more into journalism, but I had zero background in it. So I did this writing program there for a summer, and came back, and again was still working on these different projects. I helped my friend open a cafe, learned a bunch of stuff doing that, and kind of did all these different jobs for a couple of years, until finally my friend was like, why don't you just go to journalism school? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, what if I don't really want that? And I like these other things. And she was like, just stop whining about all the different things and just pick something and do it. And I was like, all right, fine. So I applied, and I finished the application and submitted it like 12 seconds before the deadline. And then I got in, and then I didn't even accept it until like 12 seconds before that deadline. And I was just like, I'm just going to do it. So I did it, and it was just the most amazing choice I could have made, because I learned so much. I made so many connections. And I think the best part of it is it showed me this is definitely what I want to do. And I was like, I had this feeling of like, oh my God, I figured it out. I've been waiting my whole life to figure it out. I figured it out. And so that was a great feeling. And it definitely made it feel worth it that I had spent all that time doing other things, so that then when I found this one, I was like, I know this is it. Some part of me also does wish that I would have figured it out sooner, because obviously if you start working hard at something sooner, most likely you're going to get farther earlier. But instead of kind of dwelling on that, I kind of think about, yeah, but I learned so much, and honestly probably wouldn't have been as good at it because I wasn't really ready before. And those other experiences did teach me so much that I still learn and use today in my job now. So I went to grad school, and that was a year-long program. In 2016, I finished, and I got a fellowship opportunity in North Carolina. And I knew I wanted to work in TV, but I got this amazing fellowship at a newspaper. And I figured, you know what, this is going to be great experience with all these incredible print reporters. I'll go there. I did all their online video, and it turned out to be amazing. It was 2016 in battleground state of North Carolina. I covered like all the politics. There was a huge hurricane. There were tons of Black Lives Matter protests. There was just so much news happening. Olympics, a lot of the Olympic swimmers trained there, so they were all training there before they left for the Olympics, and it just was a great experience. So that was fun. They offered me to stay on full time, but I kind of went with my gut, which was, I know I want to be in New York, and I know I want to try TV. And I thought I could stay here. I love it, but I'm always going to have that feeling, what if I don't go back and try TV? I got to try it. And so I politely turned them down. I still stay in touch with them, but I left and came back to New York and got a job here being a TV reporter. So what I do now is I go out every day on a different story. So it could be covering politics or breaking news like a fire or a shooting, or a feature story on someone doing something interesting in the community. And I go out and cover that story. So that means I interview people, I find the stories, I talk to people, I take video of that, I'm on camera and doing the reporting part, I write the story, edit it, put it together, and kind of do that whole thing and get the story on air. And I've actually chosen to stay in a freelance capacity with that. They've offered me to come on full time, but I wanted the flexibility to work on other projects. So I work with them most days at my TV station, but I also do other freelance work, for example, for some international channels and some kind of other like journalism projects. And then my husband actually is in the same industry, so he works for NBC, and he found this amazing clause in his contract that allowed him to take a 7-month sabbatical. And I was like, great, I'm freelance, let's do it. And so in January of this year, we both kind of left in the sabbatical capacity, so didn't leave really, but left in the sabbatical capacity, and started our own company, Jet Set Journalists, where we travel around the world telling different stories that we find around the world. So that was a very interesting time to do that. We started January 1st in China. Luckily not close to Wuhan, but still, I remember hearing about coronavirus when we were there for a few days. We were in the Northeast covering this ice festival thing. And we were like, oh, coronavirus, that's interesting. Oh, this new thing, okay. And then we were like, as it progressed, we were like, wow, we really saw this from the beginning. But so we kind of trying to outrun coronavirus the whole time, basically. So we were traveling all through Asia and Africa, in the Middle East, and kind of just traveling all around, and eventually got to Tunisia in March, where they closed all the borders. We got stuck there, and we were just sitting in Tunisia, and they're like, you can't leave, like air, land, sea, it's all shut down. The State Department was like, yeah, we'll get you a repatriation flight at some point, but it could be like a day, a week, a month, a few months, I don't know. Like, okay, great. So we stayed in Tunisia, but every step along the way, we tried to be doing something useful for our career. So for example, I reached out to different stations, and I did like, you sometimes see remote interviews. Like I did those remote interviews from there, being like, we're Americans trapped in Tunisia. So we tried every step of the way to keep what we're doing relevant. We ended up coming back to the US. There were a lot of protests and other things here in New York. So we covered that. Then we went back out for a few months, and now we're back at our regular jobs. So that's kind of my whole trajectory. Again, it was all over the place, but I think overall I ended up in the place that I wanted to be. And I still don't know, maybe I want to do more online videos, maybe more TV stuff, but at least I have the general kind of field that I want to be in. So I feel very grateful for that. And I think my biggest piece of advice that I always tell everyone, so some of you that I've done mentoring with, I'm sure I've said this to you, but I feel like the biggest thing you can do is just try things and not be scared. And I know it is scary, but so many times people are like, I would love to just move to this place or try this thing. And then they're like, but what if I don't like it? And my answer is always like, if you don't like it, just stop doing it. And I think that's true with so many things in life. Obviously, there are some things you commit to and you need to see through to a certain point. But in general, it's the idea of like, if you don't like it, then just stop and do something else. But the feeling of wondering, well, what if I would have tried it, is just like the worst feeling. And I feel like everything I have tried, I've been so happy I tried it, even if I didn't like it, because I got that experience. So I feel like anytime you have an opportunity come up, try to take it. Again, I had the opportunity to stay in North Carolina, and I chose to come back. So it doesn't mean say yes to everything, regardless of any other feelings you have, but just kind of have that feeling of like listening to your gut, but also just not being scared to take a risk, and know that the worst thing that happens is you just stop doing that thing and you come home from where you were, or you quit, or you find another job. I mean, there are so many variables in the world right now that make that scary, from regular things to coronavirus. But I think as long as you take calculated risks and you're not just going crazy, that it's a good way to try and be, and try to just feel that of like, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. So that's kind of my spiel. I'm happy to talk about anything else in particular, but if you guys have questions, I'd love to address the things that you actually want to hear about.
Thank you, Justine. Big virtual clap, round of applause for you. There we go. That was wonderful. I'm going to echo what Ron said. That's already more interesting, diverse, and global activities than most people do in their entire lifetime. And I would agree, totally incredible. I did not know you got stuck in Tunisia. So I'm learning things about you today as well. I wanted to open this up. I'm probably not going to get your name right. I got lucky with Ryan, but Marriott. Yes. All right. That's 2 for 2, people. All right. Marriott had a wonderful question. You kind of answered it, Justine, but I'll read it to the group. What advice would you give to students who are trying to get jobs or internships, but lack some of the experience that some companies want?
So I would say the best thing you can do is realize that whatever experience you have is enough, in the sense that you can make anything work for any job. For example, when I did event planning, you might think, well, event planning, you're planning like parties, and then you want to be a reporter. Like, how is that even transferable? But just one example of that is for event planning, it's a live event. Things go wrong all the time. You're never going to have an event that goes perfectly. I remember one where it was in Midtown Manhattan and someone forgot all the limes. Like, whoever was supposed to order the limes forgot the limes. So it was like right before this big event with like all these like celebrities and whatever. And someone's like, we got to get limes. And it was like 9 o'clock at night in Midtown, which just kind of like shut down. And I was like, all right, I got the limes. So I was like running around the city. I ended up going to Chipotle and begging them to sell me their limes, and like running back with these bags of limes from Chipotle to this fancy event. And I'm like, cut the limes for the bar, like, and crazy. And while I don't normally search for limes in my current job, that same mentality of things go wrong and you have to suck it up and fix it right away is exactly what I do on a daily basis, because I have a live shot and there's a shooting, and then right before we're supposed to be live, then someone comes and threatens us, we have to leave, or the cops say you can't be here but we're supposed to do this, or any number of things happen when you're out covering live news. And I use those same instincts of like, don't panic, take a deep breath and fix it. And I use that every single day. So that's just one example. Again, I used to, like, when I came back for summers in between school or right after school before I went to Thailand, I like helped manage a restaurant. So many of those customer service kind of like things that I learned during that helped me with dealing with people all the time. So I think like, don't look at it as a negative of like, oh, I just worked in like a stock room stocking things, or I just worked as a restaurant, so I have no real skills. It's like, you really have so many skills. And I think one thing that could help in trying to figure out what those are and how they apply is just make a list. I'm a really big fan of lists. I have a lot of spreadsheets going, and I just would say, make a list of all the things you did, whether it's just like talk to people, fixed things, took back returns, dealt with this. Take a list of all of those things you did, all your responsibilities, and then just see like, what's at the root of those. Okay, talking to people. Okay, communicating. Okay, like dealing with a difficult situation under stress. Any of those things, staying organized, even like in a storeroom or a store or something, and those are the skills that you kind of like boil down from all those responsibilities you have, and those are going to be applicable to whatever job you go to.
That's super spot on. The transferability of skills is a theme I think many of us on the council touch on in digital mentoring. So some great examples there. I have a host of questions I could ask Justine, but this is not my forum. So students that are tuning in, do you have any other questions on the top of your mind right now? Otherwise, I will jump into my list, but would love to give you the first shot at that.
I'll say one more thing. Maybe somebody can think of a question too. I think the other thing, and I always say this when I talk to students too, but another thing when it comes to transferring skills or anytime you're going to look for a job is just sticking with your positive attitude, because I think it's like what you show to others, but also to yourself. Because if you think about it, you're like, all I did was like waitress, and none of these skills, I guess you could kind of stretch them, but like whatever, you're going into it with this negative viewpoint of like, yeah, you're probably not going to go far with that then. But if you kind of just feel positive about it, like, you know what, I kicked ass at that restaurant and I was able to handle 8 tables at a time, and whenever like this happened, I was able to deal with the customer and whatever, and you feel confident in those skills, then that's going to help you so much. And that also shows through to your future employer. Just that positive attitude, honestly, like the individual skills you need for a job, most of the time, you don't really even develop them until you're at the job. And that's so true with reporting. Like the level I was at the day I started to now is like not even comparable. And I'm sure in 5 years, it'll be the same thing. I'll be like, what was I doing 5 years ago? So just having that positive outlook of like, I got this is just so important. And even when you don't really have it, just having the positivity of I want to get it, and I'm willing to get it, and I'm willing to have a positive attitude and smile, I think makes such a big difference and makes people just want to work with you. Because if you have 2 people to hire and one of them has maybe some more skills, maybe had an internship that was a little bit more applicable, but they don't smile once, they seem like they don't care, and they're just kind of like, whatever. I would hire the other person who worked at a restaurant, doesn't really have all the skills, but has a great attitude. I would hire that person every time. So at the end of the day, people want to work with people they want to be around. And even in the world of Corona and not physically being around people, it's like, you don't want to be on Zoom calls all day long with someone who won't smile and looks like they hate their lives. So if you try to just exude some positivity, like that's going to help you more than probably any other concrete skill you could have.
Yep, absolutely. And you're right. Right as you started running through that, we got another question. So great strategy. Love the tag teaming here. Yes, I'm going to read off the second one. Sergio, though I know you have to leave. Yes. Oh, Karen just answered. It's being recorded. We will be posting the entire recording of this on our website after we're done today. So don't worry, you can always log back in and watch it in full. But the question from Edwin, whoops, I got to scroll back up. Hold on. What would you recommend for anyone looking into getting an internship related to our communication major? I applied, but I haven't heard back.
So I'd say when it comes to like a communication major, it's so broad. So it depends a lot, I think, on what path you're trying to go down. But I think a lot of people like me when I was in school didn't really know. Again, I liked event planning, but no. So when it comes to getting a job, I think it really comes down to the same things that you'd have for any job field, whether it's communication or any other, that it's a lot of persistence and it's a lot of networking and it's a lot of having a thick skin and not getting sad every time you don't hear back or get rejected. And so I think the best thing you can do is talk to people. When I first moved to New York, like I said, I knew one person and then a friend of whatever to sleep on someone's floor and then to get that internship. If I didn't talk to people and say, hey, moving to New York, do you happen to know anybody? Hey, I kind of want to do events. Do you know anybody at all? And I mean, I was like a broken record, like everyone I came across. I was like, so I want to do events. Do you happen to know anyone? Or like, what do you think? And I think just talking to people, which I know is hard because some people have more of a personality like that than others. Obviously, I'm a very talkative person, but you know, to try and just have that general spirit, even talking with your parents' friend, or your roommate, or your professor, or literally anyone, you never know. I do this all the time. Someone's like, oh, I wanted to, you know, do a story on this thing. I'm like, oh, well, I knew someone that I went to school with and they live here now and you should talk to them. And you really like realize that the world is so connected and people know people everywhere. So it's not to say that you can't get a job from just sending in a resume. Obviously that does happen. But I think more often than not, when you know someone who can kind of facilitate that, it really helps. And again, I think it's daunting when it's like, well, know someone, I want to get into sports marketing. I don't know a single person in that. I guess I can't do it. It's like, no, you can do it. It just takes a little bit more persistence. So I think, again, that means talking to family and friends because you never know who knows somebody, but also reaching out online and on social media. And I think that, again, that's daunting because you're like, great, I'm going to write 900 LinkedIn messages and no one's going to talk to me. But just by the basic law of probability, someone's going to get back to you. I have students all the time from like schools around here writing to me on LinkedIn, and I always get back and say, sure, I'll talk to you. And they're like, oh yeah, so many people don't even write back. And it's like, of course, because people are busy. Some people don't care. Some people just don't see it, but try. And eventually someone will get back to you. And again, try with social media. You know, I pitch some of the stories that I do that aren't for the TV station, some of the other ones. And I've probably written like so many Instagram like DMs and tweets and Twitter DMs and stuff that like no one ever gets back to. But you can't look at that and be like, oh my God, I'm terrible. And like, I did everything wrong and they hate me. You just have to be like, whatever, it's probably not me. Maybe it is me, but like moving on to the next and just not letting yourself get bogged down in that. So I think if you can talk to as many people as you can about what you want to do, and then also reach out on social media, also send in resumes because it doesn't hurt, even though that's an exhausting thing to do all of that, it will eventually lead somewhere. And when you've submitted a resume and haven't heard back, I would say the best thing you can do is try to follow up. I know sometimes it's hard because you know, not a direct number is listed to, let's say, the HR person or something. But there's different ways to do it and kind of be sneaky. For example, you can try to figure out through other means online what the email address format is. For example, like for our station, it's justine.miller@news12.com. Other places, you know, it's jmiller or something. So you can try and figure that out and then like hope you get lucky with that. I also, and I do this on stories when I'm trying to get information and no one will call me back, I will call whatever number I can find for a company. And I'll say, I did this with event planning too, and we were trying to like do sales and stuff and like get our events booked. So I would call and say like, I would just pick any extension number, any number, and you'd find a directory. I'd go with like, it's like enter the first 3 letters of someone's name, John, every time. Try Mike, try Matt, try whatever. Get to somebody. And I'd say, oh yeah, I was supposed to be transferred to someone in the sales department, but like, I don't know what happened. Could you just transfer me to them? Like, sure. Same thing with like, even now at the press department, sometimes they just don't pick up the phone. It's so annoying. So I'll call like the parks department or something. And I'll finally just call like the booking number. If you want to like the number, if you want to book a field or something from the parks department, I'll be like, hey, this is the press office, right? And they're like, no, this is the booking office. I was like, oh, I don't know what happened. If you could just transfer me, I'd really appreciate it. It works. So you kind of have to come up with some of your own hacks to get what you want.
Yeah, those are some really interesting tips and tricks. I haven't tried all of those, but admittedly, I have been fairly bold with my follow-up emails during my time. And I will tell you all that I've hired for a couple different teams now at various levels. It is shocking. It is abysmal how many emails we get after interviews. I'm telling you, like 1 every 20 candidates. And so if you do that, even if you say nothing of value, you could say, hi, thank you for the interview, my name. And you would stand out a little bit more. I encourage you to write a little bit more than that. Tell them about something that you, found really interesting about your conversation, or maybe you didn't even get the interview, but you have an opportunity to email a recruiter and just say, hey, this is, I want to reemphasize what I wrote in my cover letter. Here's what I'm really interested in, why I'm really interested in the position or the company. That goes a really long way. And I'm telling you, very few people do it, whether they second guess themselves, whether they aren't sure what to write. Whatever the reason may be, that's definitely something I can double tap on. Be persistent, write those emails.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another thing that's important is I think sometimes the value of the informational interview gets lost. And people are like, well, what would I say? And that's so awkward and whatever. But it's honestly not. And I think that's a great way, if you don't have any contacts at all in a certain industry, is to reach out and say, hey, I'm like not even asking for a job. I just don't really know anything about this industry. You seem like you're so great at this, whatever it is. So I'd love to talk to you because you must have the best advice. And again, try and make someone feel good and, have done even just the most minor amount of research on them so you can sound like you know what you're talking about a little bit. And people oftentimes want to talk about themselves. They get flattered. They're like, oh, well, okay, I'll talk about myself. And then even if they don't have a job at that moment, they might say, my company's not hiring, but this guy over in that company, he is. Or maybe, timing is so funny. Maybe just a week later, they get an opening. Or maybe it's a month later, but whatever it is, they keep you in mind. And then when you do have a resume, you say, oh, hey, this perfect job came up in your company. Now you can directly email that person and say, again, thank you so much for that great talk. Here's my resume because this job came up and now can you help me try and get it? And so I think the informational interview is like just amazing. And I think another important thing is if you're going to do that and reach out to people, make sure you actually follow up, because I just had someone on LinkedIn message me like a week ago from a school out here saying like, oh, would you talk to me? And I wrote back and said, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, let me know when you're around. And then they just never wrote back. So now if they do ever write back, I'm kind of like, hey, I went out of my way to be nice and write back to your LinkedIn message and you didn't even write back to me. So I'm less motivated to want to help them.
It definitely goes both ways, right? Definitely, I echo that for sure. All right, we still have 10 more minutes, so we'll take a couple more questions. I know a few folks have dropped off, but we've still got quite a few folks on, so we will keep going if we're good with you, Justine.
Yeah, totally fine. I saw another question on the chat thing.
Yeah, there's 2 more. So we've got one about how long should you wait after an interview before sending a follow-up? I'll ask both these at once and you can respond. Will being a graduate student make a difference when looking for internships?
Okay, so for the first one, for follow-up, I would say literally as soon as I get off the call, I'd write a follow-up email. Because first of all, if you don't, then you run the risk of forgetting or running out of time later or something. So just do it right then. Second of all, you want to reference something in your follow-up email, like, hey, it was so great talking about XYZ, because then that just kind of shows that you really were paying attention, you did find something valuable, and also it gives you a nice point to follow up on later. Maybe you later find an article about that subject, so you could even send that 2 weeks later. Oh, I just saw this article, it referred to exactly what we talked about, send that along or something. And 3, it shows the person that you really care and you genuinely do want to follow up. So I would say follow up, like literally, I would do it right after I got off the call. When it comes to the graduate student thing, I think that it's the same idea that an internship, getting an internship, regardless of what grade or age you are, it's just showing your willingness to want to learn something and having someone want to take that chance on you that you're worth teaching. So I think it can be the same in both. I think the one thing that helps with graduate school is a potential employer or someone to offer you an internship might think you're a little bit more serious in that field. Obviously, if you're just coming out of undergrad and you're like, oh, I don't know, I want to try event planning or whatever it is, you definitely should be given the opportunity for that. But if you had just finished a master's program and you're like, this is my master's, I just did all this research in it, like I really have studied this, like this is my passion, obviously an employer would think, okay, well, this person like really is maybe more dedicated to it. So that shouldn't discourage you if you're an undergrad. You have just as much of a right to, you know, have those experiences. But I do think with the graduate thing, it does kind of show your true dedication to whatever that field or job is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great answers. And we've got some thank yous. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Otherwise, I will give us one more question to round us out. All right. So Justine, my question for you to bring us home is, it sounded when I was listening to you that you had a number of things were kind of your guiding principles throughout your journey, even though you were kind of jumping around. I heard, you know, I want to be on TV, I want to be in New York. What were, how would you sum up your kind of true norths throughout your career journey? And maybe that will kind of give others an idea of where they can go themselves.
Ooh, that's a good question. I gotta think about that one. I think I always, and I guess this is part of just my personality, but I always just want to try new things and experience new things, meet new people, and encourage others to do that too. And so kind of my guiding principle was just keep going and keep finding whatever that next thing is. And that doesn't always mean jump around. You know, now that I found journalism, I'm like, I want to stay in this in some capacity, but it means to always not be scared to try something new. And I think that's always kind of what it was. Because even the thing, you know, even going to study abroad in Russia, I mean, I was like, I had studied it in school, but I mean, I didn't know what I was doing going to Moscow. And I was like, you know, I'm just going to do it. And when I went to teach English in Thailand, I was like, this could be terrible. They didn't even assign us a school yet. We just literally went there. And this company was like, yeah, we'll figure something out. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. And then we traveled around, we took the Trans-Siberian train, had no idea what we were getting into, living on that for a while. And this last trip, we were just in Egypt, got all of our camera gear confiscated. And we're like trying to negotiate with these Egyptian guards. You know, it's like every step of the way, it's kind of just like, go for it, keep a positive attitude, be nice to people, and just try to see where it goes. And I think same thing with when I went to Charlotte. I was like, you know, I had a boyfriend at the time here in New York. And I was like, you know what, I kind of just got a gut feeling like you got to just go for it, try it. And so I think that's like the kind of biggest thing is try as much as interests you and try to not be scared and just do it. And if you can do that while keeping a positive attitude and being nice and being grateful, I think that you'll go far because you'll end up figuring out what you really want, and you'll end up making, whether it's friends or colleagues or just kind of acquaintances, you'll end up making those relationships for your life because you are always kind and respectful and positive with those people. Because I think sometimes people do go through life, I'm on to this, I'm on to this, I'm on to this, and kind of try to, or maybe don't even try, but just kind of crush people along the way. And I think that then it's like, what was the point of doing all that? Now you were not a good person to begin with, but you still like, you kind of just ruined all those relationships. Whereas I feel like I could call any of the people I've worked for in the past and say, hey, I know someone, could you give them a chance? Or, hey, I want to get back into that now. Or, hey, I just want to talk about the industry, whatever it is. So yeah, I think that, you know, if you can just try to take your fear and realize that it's reasonable and you don't want to make crazy decisions and take totally uncalculated risks, but try to just be like, you know what, just do it, keep a positive attitude and just move forward. And that's what I would say.
I, for one, am so energized and inspired listening to you. Yeah, Ron earlier was like, you should be a motivational speaker. We are so lucky to have you on the council, Justine. You're such a light. Thank you so much for doing this. Big round of applause for you. Thank you for all of the wonderful advice. Before we wrap up, we're going to be a few minutes early, which is great. These are intended to be kind of rapid fire, quick get to know you. So I think this format, we just proved it out, seems to have worked pretty well. I'm going to bring this slide back up just so you can see, again, we have our next one of these on November 11th. Careers in Law with Karen Thorland. We will send out Eventbrite and registration for that. It'll have a Zoom link as well when you RSVP, just like this one did. So we will make sure that you get that soon. We're also going to send out a follow-up survey just so we can, it's going to be brief, just a few questions as a pulse check on what you thought of this, if you like the format, if we can improve at all to make these better as we go along. And then my final ask is please don't be a stranger to the council. We have so many ways for you to get in touch with us, digital mentoring opportunities. We have numerous social accounts, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and we put out content, we post about these types of events, so you're really never going to be in the dark if you follow us on one of those different channels. And then of course, you'll hear about it by the listserv. So lots of ways to stay involved. We will keep you updated on what we're doing. And again, taking 45 minutes out of your Wednesday night means a lot to us. We hope it was meaningful for you. And I'll end by saying thank you to the council members that put so much work into making this happen. Jeanette, Justin, Ron, who else is on? I don't even know who the other council members are, but there's quite a few of them on this call today. Thank you all so much. This is, I think, a great success. And I'm looking forward to the next one. And Ron is posting, check out our thank you, Ron, I totally spaced on that. Check out the actual alumni page on our Comm department website, a lot more information there. And thank you, Justine.
Yeah, no, thank you guys all for tuning in and listening and all the great questions. I really appreciate it. And I'm always here to reach out to. I'm on the digital mentoring thing. So if any of you have more questions, you can always go on there.
Justine, you're totally awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yay.
Justine, that was awesome. Thank you.
We will post the recording on the website.
Thanks.